Hi, it's Tom Soane, and the question is, how much rent can you charge for your buy-to-let property? Now, this is specifically aimed at any landlord or investor that wants to get into buy-to-let properties, where you buy a property, keep it, rent it out. This will give you an idea of how you can maximize the profit from the rental income, maximize the security of the property that you're renting out and the tenancy that you're starting. But also, number three, maximizing the balance of the two, how you can make sure that you get the right amount of profit and the right amount of security. And if you can do both of those, then you are well on your way to being a very secure and very profitable landlord. So first of all, really good mindset to keep yourself in is that you've got to protect yourself from things like your tenants not paying rent, empty properties, damage, and that can happen in a number of different ways. Obviously, your tenant not paying rent can happen for a number of economic, financial, every type of reason under the sun why your tenant might not want to be able to pay rent. But also empty properties, you might have to re-let the property. You might buy it and then there's a period of time where it remains empty. You might have one tenant moving out, one tenant moving in, and there's a gap in between. And then damage, same thing. Tenants cause damage, property just naturally dilapidates over time. Now, the best way to make sure that you are covered in all of those instances is by going with a balanced way of investing, a balanced approach. And actually, the best property investors in the country would lean more towards security and safety of their investments than they would towards profit. As long as you're doing both, then I think you'll be all right. But you've still got to make profit. That is key because, as you know, you've heard me say many times before, your responsibility as a landlord is to make profit. You have to make profit in order to be able to support your tenant's home. This is their home. It's where they live. And you have to make profit to be able to support that. If something goes wrong with the property and you can't afford to get it fixed, then you're not fulfilling your landlording duties. Now, me personally, I love safe, secure, reliable, profitable properties. I don't often get into the really high yielding, massive cash flow properties because I see them as high risk. Yes, I could probably make a bit more profit per property, but I choose a more guaranteed security, a guaranteed income from those properties. Now, also, if you're building a portfolio, it's important that you use your portfolio and you balance it out right so that each property protects the next one from the risks that are involved. So if you're building a portfolio and your tenant doesn't pay rent in one of your properties, then your other properties need to be able to cover that shortfall. And if any damage occurs, maybe a boiler needs replacing or something goes terribly wrong with the property, your other properties need to be able to cover the shortfall on the other properties. So right here, right now, I'm going to talk you through 3 ways that you can, first of all, calculate the rent that you can charge. Second of all, calculate how much or how to be secure and also profitable. And third, how you can get the perfect balance between the two. Okay, so number 1, 3 ways that you can work out how much rent you can charge for your buy-to-let property. Number 1, maximize profit. Number 2, maximize security. And number 3, maximize balance. Now, obviously, I'm not going to go through the full due diligence process here, but these are fast tips to give you a rough idea. So, number 1, how can you maximize the profit on your buy-to-let property? So I'm going to use the example that your property is going to the market in order to attract tenants to rent your property from you. First thing you do, go to Rightmove and have a look at the properties that are on the market, similar to yours. Pretty obvious, you're going to do this anyway. And check what competition there is against your property. Think of it like that. These other 10 properties that are on the market are my competitors. I've got to beat them. Those are the properties I've got to beat. So once you've done that, you've got a list in front of you of all of the similar properties to yours. You know what is on the market. And now you're going to go up to filters and you're going to click include let agreed. Now these, once you now see all of the properties that are on the market and all the properties that have been let, you will see what the actual prices are for your rental property. And if you think of it like this, on the market is positioning, let agreed is the market's actual opinion. So properties that are on the market will show you where you need to position your property in order to be seen by more tenants and attract more tenant interest. But the let agreed properties are the actual prices that tenants are willing to pay for properties similar to yours. So we're talking maximum profit here. So you need to pitch your property at the top end of that. If you're going for maximum profit, pitch your property at the top end of the let agreed properties. Unless your property's rubbish, think of it like that. If your property needs a refurb or it's not in great condition, then you pitch it at the top of similar properties. That's the key. Look, if it is rubbish and, well, I say rubbish, that's a bit harsh, but if it's a property that needs work or needs attention, then you can obviously use my refurbishment rule to make sure you get that refurbishment done for technically free. That's all included in my buy-to-let masterclass, which I've talked about before. And by the way, I am taking pre-registration for that at the moment. So if you want to pre-register for my buy-to-let masterclass, then send me an email, tom@pinkstreet.co.uk, or just comment below and I'll whiz you a message, or you can message me. Simple as that. Through my Facebook page, through my LinkedIn, through my Instagram, whatever it is you're watching or listening to this on. Anyway, so that's a quick example of how you can work out what you can charge for your rental property with a good chance that you'll get it. You pitch it at the top end of those let agreed properties. So, number 2, how can we maximize the security of the rent on our buy-to-let properties? So this is the opposite end of the scale to maximizing profit, but you're still going to follow a very similar process. You've looked on Rightmove, you've worked out these are the properties that I'm competing with. If I want to rent this property out, then these are the other properties that are similar to mine that I'm going to be competing against. So you work those out and then you add the let agreed. So just go to filters and include let agreed. And then you follow the same process there. Now you can again see all the properties that are on the market and all the properties that are let agreed, which shows you where you need to position your property and what is the actual price that tenants are willing to pay. Now you're going to drop it by 5%. I know, that sounds crazy. Hold on a minute. I'll be losing money. You're not losing money. If you drop your rent by 5%, you will not be losing money. Let me tell you how. Number 1, your property will rent faster than the other properties, which means you'll have less time with that property being empty, less time that you've got to pay out your mortgage payments, your insurance payments, your management fees, all of that stuff. It means that you will rent your property faster. Of course, it's basic business. Drop your price a little bit, people will be more likely to go into your property than they will into the more expensive, especially with property. Also, the tenant will stay longer because they are more interested in renting your property because it's slightly lower. And when they're in the property, they're less likely to want to look for other deals. They're less likely to look for a cheaper property. If you're charging top rent for your property, then I promise you, your tenant is constantly keeping an eye out for a better deal all the time, which means they will stay less time when that deal comes along, which also means you'll have more chance of an empty property, more chance of a void period. A void period means a period of time where you haven't got any rent. Also, your tenant will be more likely to look after the property. I know that seems a bit far-fetched, but let me explain. If your rent is slightly lower than the rest of the market, just slightly, I'm not talking big money here, but if your rent is slightly lower than the rest of the market, then your tenant will want to stay there. That also means they will want to look after it for you and want to be less hassle because they don't want to leave. And when you can get that tenant that doesn't want to leave, that's the tenant you want in your property. I don't mean if you're trying to evict them and they don't want to leave. That's a different thing. I'm talking about when they're in the property, they're paying rent, they're looking after the property, and they don't want to leave because they love it there. They've built their home there. Their children go to the local school, and they've got a good deal on rent. Everybody on the planet just wants a good deal. It also means that they'll look after the property and there'll be less hassle for you because they will have looked after it, less time that you need to invest. And also, just as a last point, I'll throw in here as well, if you're charging slightly lower rent, you're paying slightly lower management fee. If you're using a letting agent, yeah, slightly less, nice. It could also mean slightly less money to rent the property out as well. So that's how you get maximum security on your rental property. And number 3, how can we maximize the balance of profit and security on your rental property? This one is easy. You follow the same process. You work out what properties are on the market and available now, and that's where you're going to position your property. And then you work out the properties that are let agreed, and that's when you're going to see the exact price that tenants will pay. And then you're going to pitch it about 2 or 3% below that market value. Number 1, that gets tenants in quickly. Number 2, they stay longer term. But number 3, you're not actually sacrificing a great deal. And here's the key to all of this. If you're going to balance it properly, in fact, you should probably do this with all of these tips. If you're going to balance this properly and you're going to maximize profit, you're going to maximize security, then you should always try and increase the rent in line with the property price index. Always increase your rent in line with the property price index. Now, if you've started off, let's say your property normally might be worth 800 quid a month, but you've rented it out for 775, you should increase with the property price index. I'm not talking about get it to the maximum value of your type of property. I'm talking about just keep it increasing at the percentage that the property price index grows, but always try and stay 2, maybe 3% below the full market value. That will, look, there's never a 100% rule on this. There's never a rule which will solve everything. There is always risk in investments. There's always a risk that you might not get this right or get all your rent paid or no damage to your property. There's always that risk that all will happen. But if you stay 2%, maybe 3%, below the full market value of that property, your tenant will be more likely to stay. They will be more likely to look after the property, more likely to continue paying their rent, and you will have a good tenant for a longer time. That's the key. That's what we all want. We want a good, reliable tenant that lives in our properties and stays there long term. That's what we all want. So a couple of final tips here. My advice, don't chase the maximum profit you can possibly make. Don't do it. You increase risk. The more you charge, the more you risk. It's as simple as that. More money, more risk. It doesn't matter what you're investing in. If there's more money, there's more risk. It doesn't matter what you do. Now, you might get an extra £25 a month by charging top money, but as soon as you've got an empty property, that's gone. If your tenant moves out after 2 years and it's empty for 2 months, gone. All that extra 25 quid that you've just worked for has gone. Simple as that. So my advice to you is to don't chase the maximum profit. Build the security first. Make sure you've got tenants in that are reliable, long-term, secure, reliable, or reliable twice. Why not? You've got to make your investments and your assets safe and reliable. That's the key. Profit is not just about making tons of money, because there's no point in making loads of money in profit if you're giving up your time, your energy, your mental health, your stress levels, inconvenience, and definitely increasing your risk. If you got into buy-to-let property investing, the chances are you just want somewhere good, solid, reliable to put your money. You've got cash in the bank, you've got equity in your home, whatever it is, you've decided that I want to put that money somewhere safe. So then why would you take that money and put it somewhere risky? You just wouldn't. So the key is to take that money, put it somewhere safe, make sure it's profitable, but remember that profit isn't just money. Profit is making profit in money, yes, time, energy, mental health, and keeping your hassle and annoyance and irritation, keep that down. We want profit. We don't want irritation and stress levels, because I promise you this, and I've wandered off on a tangent here. I know, shock, horror. I promise you this, when your time is done on this earth, you will not wish that you'd worked harder, worked more. You will not wish that you'd spent more time dealing with your tenants and managing your property and sorting out issues and arranging maintenance jobs and carrying out repairs and dealing with compliance. You will not look back on your life and wish you'd have done more of that. You will look back on your life, and I promise you, you will look back on your life and you will wish that you'd spent more time with your children, with your wife or husband or partner, or your family or friends, or you. You'll wish you had more time for you. So don't waste all your time trying to make an extra £25 profit. Don't do that. Make sure you get your property let, tenant in, paying rent securely, reliably, and then you can start building more profit for the future. So just to recap, number one, maximum profit. You work out what the market value is and put yourself at the top. I've just showed you how to roughly work out what the market value is. Number two, maximize security. Follow that same process and pitch your property 5% lower. You won't be losing money, I promise you. You might see it as you are, but you're not. And number three, maximize the balance of the two. Always increase with the property price index. Always stay 2, maybe 3% lower than the full market value. Think about it. When your tenant then is looking for other deals, they won't find it. Yours is the good deal. It's all right being a good deal. And don't chase your maximum profit. Don't waste your time. Don't exchange your time, energy, mental health just for a little bit of extra profit. So, okay, I'm going to finish by saying that I'm about to do a video, possibly today, maybe tomorrow, which is going to outline everything that I've included in my buy-to-let masterclass. That will probably be some sort of official launch. So make sure you know when I'm about to go live or when I post a video, and you'll be able to see exactly what I'm including in my buy-to-let masterclass. This masterclass, by the way, I don't normally do training, as you know. I normally try and just do this content to help people, but I get so many people asking me if I can do a workshop or a training course or something like that. So I'm going to do it. Why not? And this will be a buy-to-let masterclass of everything that I myself have done and my clients have done, my landlords have done, my property investors have done, and also the best property investors in the country have done. This is a really good course. I really liked putting it together, actually. Gave me a bit of a, you know, when you take a bit of a trip down memory lane, I was remembering all of the properties that I've bought and all of the properties that my clients have bought, all the lessons that we've learned, all the mistakes we've made, but also all of the successes that we've had too. So that masterclass is now open for pre-registration. Just email me, tom@pinkstreet.co.uk, and you can jump in on that. Or you can comment below and my team will message you, or you can message me direct and I will add you to the registration list. So I hope all that helps, and hopefully it gives you a bit of an idea of how you can charge the right rent, maximize your security, and minimize your risk. Have a great day, everyone. See you later.